Andre was 38 years old and made $64,000 a year as a diesel mechanic. His hands, permanently stained with the ghosts of oil and grease, had built a life of quiet stability. They had also built his wife's dream, or rather, his mother-in-law's dream, which his wife, Simone, had adopted as her own. For 3 straight years, every overtime hour, every skipped vacation, every dollar scraped from his $64,000 salary went into Loretta's Sweet Mornings, a boutique bakery in the heart of Richmond's fashionable Carytown. He'd poured a total of $120,000, his entire inheritance from his mother, into the venture. He was the 60% majority owner on the LLC paperwork, a fact that seemed more like a formality than a reality. The devastating moment came on a Tuesday at 4:15 p.m. He had stopped by the bakery on his way home from the diesel yard on South Side, a rare treat for himself. He wanted one of their $6 brown butter chocolate chip cookies, still warm. He wore his work clothes, a pair of dark blue Dickies coveralls that cost him $49.99 and smelled faintly of engine exhaust. He'd tried to wash his hands with the harsh, orange-scented soap at the shop, but the black grime under his nails was a stubborn tenant. Loretta, his mother-in-law, stood behind the gleaming white quartz countertop, a $7,000 installation he'd paid for. She was arranging a tray of $8 lemon lavender tarts. Her silver hair was swept into an elegant chignon, and her apron was immaculately white. She saw him enter, and her smile, a practiced, customer-facing thing, vanished. It was replaced by a look of profound irritation. "Andre," she said, her voice low and sharp, so the 2 customers browsing the pastry case wouldn't hear. "What are you doing here? Dressed like that?" "Just wanted a cookie, Loretta," he said, trying to keep his voice light. He felt a familiar sense of smallness in this place he owned. The air, thick with the scent of sugar and yeast, felt too clean for him. She glanced at his hands, then at his steel-toed Red Wing boots, the $150 pair he bought once a year. A tiny muscle in her jaw tightened. "Andre, we've talked about this. Customers don't want the smell of grease near their pastries. It's not a good look. People come here for an experience." She gestured around the shop at the pale pink walls, the polished concrete floors, the $3,000 custom light fixtures. "This is a high-end establishment?" He felt the heat rise in his neck. He looked past her, hoping to see Simone emerge from the back kitchen, but there was no sign of her. "I paid for this high-end establishment, Loretta." Her eyes went cold. It happened in an instant. The mask of polite society fell away, and for the first time he saw the unvarnished contempt she held for him. "Your money bought the bricks and the oven. It didn't buy you the right to stink up my shop and drive away my clientele." She took a step forward, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Get out of my shop, Andre, and don't come back unless you've showered and changed. This is a place of business, not your garage." He stood there for a moment, the cheerful tinkle of the bell on the door from a new customer entering sounding like a scream in his ears. He looked at her face, the carefully applied $60 Chanel foundation, the perfectly drawn eyebrows. He looked at the empire he had funded, the dream he had supported with his sweat and his inheritance, and he realized he was a stranger here, an inconvenient, greasy ATM. He didn't say another word. He turned, the scuff of his work boots loud on the pristine floor, and walked out into the humid Richmond air. He never went back, but what he didn't know was that the betrayal was far deeper and more calculated than a few cruel words. They had no idea what was coming. Have you ever poured your heart and soul into something, only to be treated like you don't belong? It's a pain that cuts deeper than any insult. Let us know in the comments if you've ever felt underestimated. And stick with us to see how Andre gets the last word. The facade of their domestic life had been built with the same meticulous care as the bakery. Their two-bedroom condo on Oakmont Drive, with its $2,800 monthly mortgage payment, was a testament to Simone's taste and Andre's labor. She had picked out the $3,500 gray sectional sofa from Crate and Barrel, the $1,200 West Elm coffee table, and the abstract art prints that cost $400 each. He had assembled all of it, his large, calloused hands carefully following the cryptic diagrams, making sure every screw was perfectly tight. Their life operated on a simple financial principle. His salary covered their life, and her future profits covered her dreams. When the bakery was just a concept scribbled in a $40 moleskin notebook, the dream had felt like a shared one. They would sit at their $800 dining table after Andre got home from a 10-hour shift. He'd be eating a simple dinner of chicken and rice he'd made, while she would show him pictures on her $1,100 MacBook Air. "Look at this flooring, baby," Simone would say, her deep brown skin luminous under the warm light of the pendant lamp. "Polished concrete, it's so chic. It's only $12 a square foot." He'd nod, trying to do the math in his head. The space they were looking at in Carytown was 1,500 square feet. That was $18,000 just for the floor. "Looks nice, honey. And the oven. Mama says we have to get a Blodgett. It's the best. The convection system ensures an even bake every single time." The price tag for the commercial convection oven was $18,000, another check from his inheritance account. He had inherited $150,000 when his mother passed, and he'd earmarked it for a down payment on a small house with a yard. But Simone's dream was so vibrant, so detailed. He wanted to give her that. He remembered the day he wrote the first big check. It was for $60,000, half of the initial startup capital. He signed it at their dining table. His pen was a free one from the auto parts store. Her hand rested on his, her nails perfectly manicured, a $50 gel polish shimmering. "This is it, Andre. This is the beginning of our empire," she'd whispered, her voice thick with emotion. He'd felt a surge of pride. He, Andre, the mechanic, was building an empire for his beautiful, ambitious wife. The sacrifices were all on his end, but he told himself it was temporary. He sold his beloved 1998 Ford F-150, a truck he'd babied for a decade, for $7,500 to help cover the unexpected costs of the plumbing installation at the bakery. He started driving his father's old 2012 Toyota Camry, a car with 187,000 miles on it and a persistent rattle in the dashboard. He packed his own lunch every day, sandwiches and a bag of chips, saving the $15 he might have spent at the diner near the yard. That was $75 a week, $300 a month, $3,600 a year that could go toward a new mixer or a point-of-sale system for the bakery. Simone's sacrifices were harder to see. She quit her job as a marketing assistant, where she made $48,000 a year, to focus on the bakery full-time. But her lifestyle didn't change. If anything, it became more expensive. She needed a new wardrobe for her role as a Carytown business owner. There was a $2,400 Burberry dress for the Chamber of Commerce meet and greet, an $800 pair of Stuart Weitzman boots for a magazine interview, a $900 Tory Burch handbag because image is everything, Andre. He never questioned it. He just picked up another overtime shift, the diesel fumes clinging to his clothes as he worked late into the night, fixing the engines that kept the city running. He was the silent, greasy foundation upon which their beautiful, sugary life was built. He had no idea how weak that foundation truly was. The cruelty didn't start with the "get out of my shop" comment. That was just the moment the mask came off completely. The escalating betrayal had been a slow poison, administered in small daily doses that he had tried his best to ignore. It was in the casual condescension, the dismissive laughs, the subtle ways they reminded him that he was from a different world. It began with the name. He had naively suggested they call it A and S Suites, or something that reflected their partnership. Loretta had laughed, a short, sharp sound like breaking glass. They were sitting in her immaculate living room in her Windsor Farms home, a house worth at least $1.2 million. Oh, Andre, that's sweet. But it doesn't have the right pedigree. Loretta's sweet mornings sounds established. It sounds like old money. Simone had nodded in agreement, her eyes fixed on her mother with rapt admiration. Mama's right, babe. It's about branding. He had dropped it. He was a mechanic. What did he know about branding? Then came the photo shoot. A local Richmond lifestyle magazine was doing a feature on new businesses. It was a huge opportunity. Andre took the day off work, forfeiting $256 in wages, and bought a new shirt, a crisp button-down from Banana Republic that cost $89. He felt proud, standing in the finished bakery, the smell of fresh paint and possibility in the air. The photographer, a wiry man with glasses, was setting up his lights. Loretta and Simone arrived together, looking like they'd stepped out of a catalog. Loretta was in an $8,700 Armani suit, and Simone wore a silk blouse that probably cost more than his entire outfit. They greeted the magazine editor and the photographer with bright, charming smiles. Andre stood off to the side, waiting to be called over. Loretta did a final check of her makeup in a small, compact mirror. She glanced over at Andre, and her smile faltered. She walked over to him, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. "Andre, darling," she began, her voice a syrupy whisper. "We're so glad you're here to see this, but I think for the actual photos, it's best if it's just me and Simone. You know, the faces of the brand. I'm the majority owner," he said, his voice quiet. "And we are so grateful for your investment," she said, patting his arm. It was a gesture one might use on a child or a pet. But this is about marketing. It's the mother-daughter story. It's clean. It's relatable to our target demographic. A man in the picture? It just complicates the narrative. He looked at Simone for support, but she wouldn't meet his eyes. She was busy talking to the editor, laughing at something he'd said. She was already living in the world the magazine was selling, a world where he didn't fit. He felt a profound and chilling humiliation. He mumbled something about needing to get back to the shop and left before they could even notice he was gone. He saw the article a month later. The photo was beautiful. Simone and Loretta, their radiant, glowing skin looking perfect under the studio lights, stood arm in arm, presented as the sole creators of this family dream. His name wasn't mentioned once. The most painful moment, the one that replayed in his mind for months, happened 3 weeks before Loretta kicked him out of the shop. His father had been sick. His kidneys were failing. A slow, grueling decline. Andre spent most of his weekends at the hospital, sitting by his father's bed, reading to him, or just holding his hand. One Sunday, he was particularly exhausted. His father had had a bad night. Andre had been at the hospital since 6 a.m. He called Simone around noon. "Hey, honey, I'm really drained. Dad's not doing great. I don't think I'll be home until late." Her sigh was audible over the phone. "Andre, you can't spend every waking moment there. You have a life. We have a life." "He's my father, Simone." "I know, but Mama and I are getting swamped at the bakery. The brunch rush is insane. We could really use an extra pair of hands, even just to run boxes to the front or wash some pans." He was stunned into silence. He was sitting in a cold, sterile hospital room, watching his father's chest rise and fall with shallow breaths, the beep of the heart monitor a constant grim metronome. And she was asking him to wash pans. "I can't, Simone. I need to be here." "Fine," she said, her voice clipped and cold. "But don't be surprised if we hire someone. We can't rely on you. It's just, you seem so disconnected from what we're trying to build. This bakery is our future, and you're always somewhere else, covered in grease or sitting in that dreary hospital." The line went dead. He stared at his phone, a cheap $200 Samsung that was 2 generations old. He looked at his hands, which had paid for her $1,100 iPhone. He looked at his father, the man who had taught him how to be reliable, how to work hard, how to provide. The cruelty of her words settled in his bones, a deep, unshakable cold. She didn't see his sacrifice or his grief. She only saw an asset that wasn't performing to her expectations. He had no idea that on that very day, as he sat by his dying father's bed, she was performing the ultimate act of betrayal, signing his name, his future, and his trust away with the flick of her wrist. The poison had done its work. The foundation was about to crumble. The discovery happened on a Saturday morning, at 9:32 a.m., 6 weeks after Loretta had ordered him out of the shop. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, one of those perfect Virginia autumn days. Andre hadn't spoken to Simone about what happened. A cold, silent war had descended upon their condo. They moved around each other like ghosts, the unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. He knew the marriage was over, but he was still trying to figure out how to untangle his life from hers, how to salvage the $120,000 that represented his mother's legacy. He was driving his old Toyota Camry down Carey Street, heading to an auto parts store to pick up a specific fuel injector for a Kenworth T680 he was working on. It was a part that would cost him $450, but the job would pay him $1,200. He rarely drove through Carytown. It was her territory, a world of boutique shops and expensive brunch spots that made him feel like he was wearing the wrong clothes. But the GPS had rerouted him due to an accident on the expressway. As he approached the block where the bakery stood, he saw a crowd gathered on the sidewalk. Balloons, in the bakery's signature pale pink and gold, were tied to the lamp posts. He slowed the car, his heart beginning to pound a slow, heavy rhythm against his ribs. And then he saw it. Stretched across the front of the building was a massive vinyl banner. The text was in an elegant, looping script. It read, "Grand reopening under new sole ownership. Loretta and Simone Evans. Family owned since day one." The words didn't compute at first. Sole ownership. Family owned since day one. He was family. He was the owner. He pulled the car over to the curb, ignoring the honk from the driver behind him. He put the car in park and just stared. His mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a marketing mistake, a poorly worded banner. But the phrase sole ownership was a legal term. It was precise. It was a declaration. His hands started to tremble. He felt a wave of nausea roll through him. He fumbled for his phone and pulled up the Virginia State Corporation Commission website. His fingers felt thick and clumsy as he typed in Loretta's Sweet Mornings, LLC. He clicked on the business entity details. He scrolled down to the list of members. His breath caught in his throat. There were only 2 names listed: Loretta Evans, member; Simone Evans, member. His name, Andre Jackson, was gone. Beside his name, in the history log, it said, "Member resignation filed." The date of the filing was listed. It was a Sunday 7 weeks ago. He froze. That Sunday. He knew exactly where he had been on that Sunday. He closed his eyes and the image was immediate and searing. The pale green walls of the VCU Medical Center, the smell of antiseptic, the soft, rhythmic beep of the machines connected to his father. His father had passed away 2 days later. That Sunday, he had been by his side from 6:17 a.m. until 10:45 p.m. He had not left the hospital once. He certainly hadn't signed any legal documents resigning from the business he had poured his life into. The air in the small car felt thick, unbreathable. He looked back at the bakery. He saw Loretta and Simone standing outside, greeting people, accepting hugs and congratulations. They were beaming, bathed in the bright morning sunlight. Simone was wearing a white dress that probably cost $1,000. She looked radiant. She looked free. He saw her throw her head back and laugh, a joyous, uninhibited sound he hadn't heard in years. And in that moment, the full, crushing weight of the betrayal landed on him. It wasn't just an insult. It wasn't just a business dispute. They had waited until he was at his most vulnerable, distracted by grief and love for his dying father, and they had stolen his mother's legacy from him. They had forged his name and erased him. The quiet man, the greasy mechanic, was finally incandescently angry. He put the car in drive, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, and drove away. Not back to the diesel yard, but toward downtown, to the tall glass towers where the lawyers worked. They had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated him. What would you do if you discovered a betrayal so deep it stole your past and your future? The shock can be paralyzing, but sometimes it's the spark that lights a fire. We're about to see Andre shift from victim to strategist. Stay with us. For the next 3 weeks, Andre lived a double life. At home, in the Oakmont Drive condo, he was the quiet, withdrawn husband. He was playing dumb, a role that chafed against every honest fiber in his body. But he knew it was his only advantage. He needed to gather his evidence without tipping his hand. Each lie, each feigned moment of normalcy was a scene in a grim play he was forced to direct. The first scene took place the night of his discovery. He got home at 7:12 p.m. Simone was in the kitchen, humming along to a playlist on her Sonos